Hey everybody, good morning. And it is a special Devo with Bowo today. A little different than normal just because it is a Saturday. And I usually don't do devotions on Saturday or air them anyway. But I thought today, was kind of one of those, I haven't done too many Devos because I've been sick for a while with this congestion. And then I had the motorcycle accident at the beginning of December. And so I thought, man, you know what? I got nothing else to do. So, man, I'd like to do a devotion. So I'm going to be in Hosea 3 and 4 today. Hosea 3 and 4. This is the morning Devo with Bowo. Bowellette is my name. Ouellette. And Bo is the first name, and you could always check out my archives at my YouTube channel, Bo Willette. So you could just go to Bo Willette, or go to youtube.com, go to the search bar, type in Bo Willette, Ouellette, and you'll come to my page, and there's a lot of playlists there with a lot of books of the Bible. So I'm going through the Bible in my devotions because that's how I do it, instead of just taking a short little thing, a little tiny like saying, I like to actually read the Bible and go through the actual scriptures. It helps me understand God. It helps me understand how God works in history. What is the evidence of God? What the Bible even says about what is the evidence of God? What would be the evidence of God? Those kind of things. It answers so many questions if you just read through it. And growing up secular progressive from Southern California, I certainly did not read the Bible, was not around the Bible growing up at all. Didn't really know any Christians. None of my friends that I knew really were Christian. If they were and had that background, I had no clue about it. I remember one time, just one of my friends took us to Magic Mountain, and I look back on it, it was a church thing that they did, and I remember we got busted for stealing, and we did a lot of bad things, but I had no clue I was on a church retreat type of thing. So yeah, it was definitely different background, but just through reading the Bible, through my influence in heavy metal music and reggae music, I have been a musician for a long period of time, studied classical music, studied with some really good players. Through that, I heard about the Bible and wanted to read it. So that's why I read it anyway, and really changed my life. Fell in love with the God of the Bible. So anyway, I'm going to do it. Hosea 3:4, whether people are with me or not, man, I'm in it. I'm in it to win it. Okay, so let's read Hosea 3. It says, "Then the Lord said to me, go and love your wife again, even though she commits adultery with another lover. This will illustrate that the Lord still loves Israel, even though the people have turned to other gods and love to worship them." Wow. It's amazing that God would love us that much, that we are like adulterers, man. We just like go astray and just do all kinds of things, right? It's funny that when a lot of times we bag on prostitutes or people that have sexual issues like adultery and stuff like that, and we tend to kind of say, man, I would never do that. It's interesting that the God of the Bible says, no, you are that. And that's kind of a rude awakening for us. It's kind of a hit to the pride, isn't it? It's like, what, me? I never did that before. Well, you might not have done it in the sense of like a physical act of adultery, but spiritually speaking, if we were to take that idea of not being faithful, and take that into the realm of God, in a relationship with God, then that is true. We all have gone astray. Each one of us have gone our own way. No one seeks after God. No, not one, the Bible says. That we are tainted with sin, that there is a problem with us that is so deep and so entrenched in the body that literally we needed God to take a body to literally deal with something within the body. It's pretty radical thought. But we just celebrated Christmas, so we kind of have it on our mind, what's called the incarnation, that God would take a body, but that's the reason why. It's because we all, like sheep, have gone astray. So, man, what a way to think this morning, right? Maybe I too have a problem, and that's tough for a lot of people to digest. Most people, when they say, hey, I want to be positive, sometimes that positivity is what they're saying is I can't deal with the cognitive dissonance of knowing that I fall short of the glory of God. Or maybe I don't want to even believe in God because I fall short of the glory of God. And I probably was more along that camp where I just didn't even want to believe in God. Why? Because I knew that if there was a God, I certainly was not close to being like him. And I certainly fell short in many, many ways, and still do. And it says, and so I brought her back for 15 pieces of silver, and 5 bushels of barley, and a measure of wine. Then I said to her, you must live in my house for many days, and stop your prostitution. During this time you will not have sex relations with anyone, not even me. A time of just learning how to live, learning how to deal, right? I love how Jesus comes to Israel, right? He comes to his people, and he doesn't come married, but he comes focused on having a relationship with them. I kind of see something cool in that. Maybe even an answer of why Jesus never got married. Maybe like this passage in Hosea where it says, "Hey, we'll be in a relationship, but we're not going to have intimacy. We're going to focus on some other things." And maybe that's what Jesus was doing, is just focusing on some things with the people of Israel. Kind of a fulfillment maybe of this kind of idea that we see in Hosea 3. Just an idea. It's just a thought, of Bo. Take it for what it is. So, hey, Tina, thanks for joining me this Saturday. God, I didn't know if anybody would be in on my Shabbat devotion. So it says, this shows that Israel will go for a long time without a king or prince, and without sacrifices, sacred pillars, priests, or even idols. But afterward, the people will return and devote themselves to the Lord, their God, and to David's descendant, their king. In the last days, there will be terrible. They will tremble in awe of the Lord and his goodness. Okay. So there'll be a restoration with Israel once again, and I love that about the Bible. There's always the bad news, and then there's the good news, and there's the gospel, right? And that is the restoration, that God is not done with you yet. So the gospel is always interweaved throughout the Old Testament, and it's the good news that God is not done with the people yet. He will restore, he will bring back, and that is such a beautiful story. It's such a beautiful story that almost every movie that we watch is a parody of it, which is interesting, right? Meaning the movies we enjoy are ones where there's what? There's a conflict, but then there's what? A restoration. It's interesting that hits us so much as human beings, that no matter what your belief system is, no matter if you're an atheist or some religious person, all those movies tend to resound strongly within us as human beings, because they are something we not only know is to be true, meaning there's conflict, but something we hope for tremendously, and that is a restoration of all things. So chapter 4 says, Hear, O Israel, or hear the word of the Lord, O people of Israel. So we're talking to Israel. The Lord has brought charges against you, saying, There is no faithfulness, no kindness, no knowledge of God in your land. You make vows and you break them. You kill and steal and commit adultery. There is violence everywhere. One murder after another. Man, I wonder if this would be the kind of word to us too in our country, or maybe in your country, wherever you're at. Is that you could see that if God were to really come down here right now and have a little talk in our town or in your city, in your community, is this how God would speak? I got to imagine this is how God would talk, where God would say, you know what? I look at you guys and I see everything that you do, and I know your hearts, and I don't see much faithfulness. You guys aren't very kind to one another. You know, man, you got a lot of hate in your heart. You know, just a real dissecting of the human condition. And that's the cool thing about the Bible, right? It speaks really good, really, really truthfully about the human condition. This is true. We can see it within ourselves, meaning when we just look within ourselves. And it's also true when we look out. When we look out at other people, read history books, this is what we see. Not a human being that holds to vows, but breaks vows, right? That compromises, that doesn't have integrity, all kinds of things like that. It says, that is why your land is in mourning and everyone is wasting away. Maybe that's why we're wasting away. Maybe that's why depression is so high and anxiety and so many illnesses and so much things. Maybe we just don't, maybe it's just it's the result of all this turmoil within. Even the wild animals and the birds of the sky and the fish of the sea are disappearing. It's amazing how human beings are so jacked. All you need to do, if you want to prove this, is just look at the relationship between humans and animals. It's all you got to do. Is just look at that. How do human beings affect the animal world? And you would be mind blown to go into what we do to animals. Dogs, cats, snakes, birds, you name it. We have done amazing things to these animals. They've become commodities. We buy and sell, breed, make massive amounts of money on animals. It's unreal. It goes on, but yeah, and it's fun. It's so sad. We might think we're doing good, but we're really not doing good at all, right? We haven't done well with even the animals, treating animals well. You know, there are people out there that, man, have hearts for dogs and cats and do their best to treat them right. And man, I commend them. And I think, man, that is such a beautiful heart, you know, because we just as a whole, as a human group of people on this planet, that's the third planet from the sun, we do not do a good job of this. And so, even the animals are all disappearing. It says, don't point your finger at someone else and try to pass the blame for their extinction. Right? My complaint, you priest, is with you. You leaders, you religious people, it's with you. So you stumble in broad daylight, and you false prophets will fall with you in the night. And I will destroy Israel, your mother. My people are being destroyed because they don't know me. Since you priests refuse to know me, I refuse to recognize you as my priests. Since you have forgotten the laws of your God, I will forget to bless your children. It's so sad that, you know, Hosea is talking to the northern area of Israel, more the northern tribes, you could say. And this northern part of Israel has really taken to idols and really has gone away from Torah, you know, from the writings of Moses, the law. And they've done it for a long period of time and really shut the door on the knowledge of the true and living God for the people, for the children, and have really turned a blind eye and to the atrocities that were going on in the area by the leadership, by the religious leadership, and by the government. And it's a bummer when government and religion gets together and just goes rogue, has no accountability. And, it's like when you're in a home, and you're growing up and your dad has no accountability, right? Your dad just comes home, he gets tanked, he just gets ripped, and he just beats, the family. He has no accountability. And then he just, he gets up in a day or two and he goes back to work and does his thing and thinks nothing of it. And then just does it again and again and again and again and has no accountability. Just thinks he's got it together. It's so sad, right? That kind of abuse. And that happens all the time. And so when Jesus comes on the scene, Jesus does the same thing. Jesus goes to the religious government and he tells them the same exact thing that Yahweh speaks through Hosea to the nation. And he says, you guys are a big problem. And my people are being destroyed because of you. They don't know me because of you. And so Jesus goes and says pretty much this to them, to the Pharisees, and to the Sadducees, and the scribes of the law and all that. So verse 8 says, when the people bring their sin offering, the priests get fed. So the priests are glad when the people sin. Hey, it's awesome people sin. It keeps us in have a job. Well, that wasn't so much the idea as, man, they get to bring, a steak. We're going to have a feast because they're going to sacrifice animals. So there was like these weird motivations going on. Instead of wanting the people really to be free and to be able to just not be bound by sin, they kind of were stoked that they would bring this sacrifice and that they would get a piece of the meat, They would get in a sense, their choice beef from all the people's sin offerings. Ooh. And they became glad about it. And what do the priests do? The people do also. And now I will punish both priest and people. And it says, they will eat and still be hungry. They will play the prostitute and gain nothing from it. They will have deserted the Lord to worship other gods. Wine has robbed my people of their understanding. They ask for a piece of wood for a vice. They think a stick can tell them the future. Longing after idols has made them foolish. They have played the prostitute, serving other gods and deserting their God. Okay, so they keep deserting God and going after other things, and they're pretty lame. And it's kind of weird, but we're like this too. We kind of exchange the truth of God for lame things. Like, for instance, if there really is a God, then it would be the most rational thing and the most important thing to seek that being and to seek what that being knows, the knowledge of that being. That would be the most important thing. Why? Because God is the greater. We're the lesser. We should be more in awe of the greater, want to know the greater. It's irrational to go to something lesser, like to get involved, to find something else is your everything, right? The reason you live is something equivalent to you or less than you. And what I mean by less than you is an inanimate object like a pair of skis or a surfboard or a guitar or things like that. Like they're all cool, I guess, but they're all created things. To worship them would be the lesser. See, the most rational thing is to be in awe of the greater, right? Something amazing. That's why when Michael Jordan hits the last winning shot, or LeBron James, or whoever your guy is, right, hits the last second shot, again, we're in awe of it because it's amazing. It's something greater. Not everybody can do that. So when we see something on, the Winter Olympics or the Summer Olympics, and it's awe-inspiring, it's because not everybody can do it. It's amazing. That's the rational thing to do, is to be in awe of the greater. But to be in awe of the lesser, that doesn't make sense. And yet that's what most of us do on the planet. Is what do? We worship other things. We go to other things. Less than or equivalent to us. Wow. Yeah, that's what we're all doing. At the university, all over the world. Yeah, we start worshiping ourselves. We worship other people. They become our authority. They become the people in the know. Or we just worship, things that we do, things that we like. And this is what God's saying is, man, you've gone these directions. You totally deserted God, in this way. And in this way, you're like a prostitute, right? You're the one who's just looking to other things, looking to gain something from, your relationship elsewhere instead of with the Lord. Where is who is the person I go to? Who is my refuge? Who is my fortress? Where is the place that I really run to, that I really go to? And it doesn't mean that you don't like going outside or on a walk or getting on your skis and going on the slopes or getting on a skateboard or getting on your motorbike or whatever you do that you like to do. That's beautiful. But where do you ultimately go? Where does your mind really ultimately move you? Do you end up, who do you end up trusting? What is the book that really impacts you? That really moves you, gets you back on track. And those are the things that really kind of can tell the tale of really where you're at, who you're really listening to, who really you trusting. So it says they offer sacrifice to idols on mountaintops, and they go up to the hills to burn incense in their pleasant shade of oaks. They're all very spiritual. That's what the Bible's teaching. Is, we all get into our quote, I'm spiritual. And you hear, like, I think I was Ariana Grande, or I think that was the singer who was, I think there was this interview where she was saying it. I could have this totally wrong. So, hey, Mrs. Grande, I'm sorry if I messed this up. Or it might be Miss Grande. I don't know. But I think it was her that was saying something like, I used to be like a Christian, but now I'm just spiritual. And that is what we do, like growing up as Southern California's people, is we say that because we have no clue what we're saying. And spiritual just makes sense. It sounds like I'm not going to offend anybody. People aren't going to get mad at me if I say that. They might even think I'm a pretty cool person if I say the word spiritual. And so the people of Israel were kind of spiritual, if that makes sense, whatever that means, right? It means they kind of burned incense and they kind of did their little rituals, the things that they like to do, they thought was cool. And I think that's what being spiritual means. When someone says, hey, I'm spiritual, what they're saying is, I like to do certain things and make up my own belief system and just do whatever I want to do spiritually. Because really, that's what it's about. It's about me. And it's really not about me conforming or being transformed to God. And God's the creator, but I'm just going to do what I want to do spiritually. That's what I get. And that's what I did. I mean, that's kind of how I went about it anyway, growing up. And it says, that is why your daughters turn to prostitution and your daughters-in-law commit adultery. Why should I punish them for their prostitution and adultery? For you men are doing the same thing, sinning with whores and shrine prostitutes. O foolish people, you refuse to understand, so you will be destroyed. Now, this is a huge, huge, important point. The women are not going to be judged by Yahweh because the men are the ones that are leading them. In this culture we live in, women desire to be like a man. They want to vote like a man. They want to be in government like men have been. They want to do everything men do. And the idea is that men know what they're doing. This could be a wrong premise. Maybe men don't know what we're doing. Maybe we, like Israel, have been doing the wrong thing. And maybe when women want to be like men, that's an actual unfortunate thing. Because just as men have lusted and have created industries of lust over the globe, maybe women will just follow that lead. And that's what we've seen, right? Women become owners of the industry of lust. And it just takes over, right? Women just have become like men. Men have intimacy on their own, the way they want to, how they want to, how often they want to. They coerce and force and do whatever. And what happens? Women follow that lead. They do exactly what men do. It's too bad, huh? That we use our freedoms. When we gain freedom, we don't use it in a very constructive way. We think we are, but we actually are just following the leader. And maybe what's happening in our world is like what was happening in Israel, is that the women actually were using their freedom to follow the men, the blind leading the blind. Boom, mind blower, right? And maybe that's exactly what we see today in our world. Maybe we've had it all wrong from the beginning. Maybe following us guys isn't the way to go. Maybe us guys don't have it right. Maybe there's a better way. And so it says, hey, I'm not going to judge the women for their prostitution. Why? Because you men do it. And they're just following you guys. You guys are taking the lead. So when, you look at the why women are the way they are today, you're going to have to look at the men and how the men have led in government, in the way we've ruled, the way we've treated, the way we've parented, all those kind of things. Pretty crazy, right? I mean, man, that's amazing. The Bible's so right on spot, man, almost too on spot. And it says, "O foolish people, you refuse to understand, so you are so destroyed." Man, blind leading the blind. Through you, Israel, you are a prostitute. May Judah avoid such guilt. The northern tribe is, man, you guys have prostituted yourself. You've gone your way. Judah, I pray those southern tribes don't go that way. Right? Now, this is Yahweh speaking to Israel. And just remember that, again, it's God. God, the harshest words to Israel are from Yahweh, right? And it says, do not join the false worship of Gilgal or Beth Aven. Even though they take oaths there in the Lord's name, Israel is stubborn, like a stubborn cow, like a heifer. It says, so should the Lord feed her like a lamb in a lush pasture? Leave Israel alone, because she is married to idolatry, totally joined to idolatry, right? Should the Lord feed her like a lamb? Like treat her like a lamb? No way. It's like a giant heifer. It's like a giant cow, man, just stubborn, won't move, just sitting there. I sometimes ride my motorcycles around and I go by these cow areas where these tons of cows, and it's neat to see them just sit, dude. They just sit or stand and eat in one spot and they barely move. It's really trippy. And then it says, when the rulers of Israel finish their drinking, off they go to find some prostitutes. They love shame more than honor. So a mighty wind will sweep them away. Their sacrifices to idols will bring them shame. So true. Nothing's wrong with wine. But a lot of times drinking can lead us into areas that we never thought we'd be in. And that happened in Israel too. People just didn't go out and get prostitutes, but they first got tanked. They first drank a little bit and first numbed themselves, and then they went in that direction. And that's a lot like us. A lot of times we need to be a little numb in order to go into a direction. We need a little bit of being numb, and then it'll move us. That's why we go to clubs and bars. Because in order to dance, I might need a little sip. Something that kind of takes the edge off, right? Something that maybe even can make me go to another level. Do something I would maybe never do in my right mind. The New Testament says, be sober-minded. And meaning be clear-minded. Be careful. Because we can drink to places or drug to places where we're no longer thinking right. And we're easy now. We're prone to go down a direction. So I know in my life, sometimes it's good for me to look at, the idea of intoxication with the idea of my sin and kind of equate those things. What am I taking in that's kind of intoxicating? Sugar, caffeine, alcohol, drugs, different things like that. And, go, man, what do I take in that affects me and maybe moves me into directions that I don't want to go in? Well, these people, of course, just did the traditional thing. They just, they got tanked and they went and got their prostitutes, So a very real passage. It's real to our world. Everything we've read is not something we don't see already. I think the interesting thing is the Bible gives us insight into how we all are like this. We all have, in relation to God, have gone a different direction. In a sense, we've prostituted ourselves. We've sold ourselves to other things that we've become in awe of over the Creator. So instead of being awe of the Creator, we have, in a sense, chosen the lesser. And then I think the other thing we see in the chapters is that it's interesting that us male leadership is really the effect of that is poor discipleship, where females of the world, when they have gained freedom in a society, have literally just followed the men into whatever the men do. So if the men are just hateful dictators, harsh, then they go in that direction. They just literally have taken over the attributes of the men. Being like a man maybe isn't where it's at. Maybe the idea is to be like God and to look to God and to want to move up to that level, to be like the character of God, that's where we need to go instead of look to one another and go, oh man, I want to be just like that person. And yeah, you become like that person, but unfortunately that person's not that good, And so I think there's some interesting ramifications that there's an insight here in chapter 4 that many people in this world have never thought of. And that is that idea that women following men have gone the wrong path, have gone the wrong way. So anyway, you guys take care. Have a great day. And thanks for joining me. Okay, bye-bye.